Came from Bangalore this morning. My flight was around 9 o'clock, and somehow usually I never bother nowadays about my next day's meeting and dress. Because usually I go to villages and I go to meetings where politicians are there, so this is standard, you know, that kurta pajama and all that. But this time I was, oh my God, I'm going to give a TED talk to a technical audience or rather IT audience and people who essentially are professionals, which was my avatar 5 years ago when I sold my businesses in 2005. Mentioned I made and sold 3 companies before I retired in 2005 when I turned 40. So I was thinking, how will I convey my message? I saw Anil, another good friend of mine. I am a professor. He was in kurta pajama, and I think that was good for him in terms of getting his message across. I was in dilemma. If I go in kurta pajama, may I be dismissed as another NGO guy who's trying to come and give a talk and trying to convert everybody to an NGO? Should I go with it? By the way, I have my tie in my bag. I was wondering, looking at the audience, I will decide whether I have to put a tie or not. So this is essentially the context which I want to talk about. We all are, majority of you, I would assume, would have had some exposure to the India which is not happening, essentially the rural India. And I myself have a background which is a rural background. I grew up in rural India. Only saving grace was that my parents made sure that I got good education, went to IIT, went abroad, did well for myself, and was able to retire by 40 and not worry about earning money. So that was, I think, something which is different within me and my cousins who still happen to be living in the same village. Nothing much has happened. But what has happened to them is that when I grew up, the family had maybe 50 acres. And then they had 5 sons, and each of them potentially had 2 or 3, 4 more, because that was, the norm was 4, 5 kids. And then it became 2, 3, in villages it's still 3, 4. The same 50 acres or 5 acres, whatever is now divided into 15 people or 20 people. So absolutely the quality of life, actually we enjoyed village life then. And I still fondly remember, power was not there, a lot of other issues, but life was really fun and it wasn't that desperate. And of course, our friend Dr. Verma, who talked about this UID project, we all are trying. Government is spending close to 2 lakh crores every year to make sure that life of the people in the villages improves. And I think results are very mixed. We continue to have people farmers committing suicide for reasons which are varied. And I don't know if many of you have seen the movie called Well Done Abba. It was about, it was actually Andhra story. And there's a movie called Peoply Life. And that's actually reality. It's not a fiction. It's just reality put into format which is understood by most of us who are now living in cities. And the number of people living in cities is not more than 20%. Cities and towns who potentially don't need to worry about their meals, how to manage their life, the kids' education, the health and nutrition. So remaining 80% of India, not much is happening. And also I think I have a philosophy and theory why it's not happening, because as opposed to China, India took or could not do the manufacturing. We went the services way, where we used our, not hands, we used our minds to kind of do things which we could do better than others in the world. When I left India, it was very early, late 80s, and I still remember that if you are doing anything good, people simply one question, oh, you must be from you are from India? Okay. Oh, you are in New York or you are in Tokyo? Oh, you must be from IT industry. So there was one industry which changed the image of India, and this is again the beginning. Then of course now we have other industries, biotech, IT, pharma, your automobile, and of course India is happening because even if 20%, 30% India is happening, I'm sure it is as big a size as United States or Europe. So this is very exciting for a lot of people. And also another, I can't call him friend, he was very senior to me, but I had good fortune of meeting him. He's no more, Professor Prahlad. And I'm sure if many of you have read his book, profit at the bottom of pyramid. I call it profit. He said opportunities, but essentially it was very popular among businessmen because everybody was wondering how to make profit from that bottom of pyramid. Essentially what it meant, there are so many people at the bottom, especially in a country like India, who can afford only 5 rupees per day of buying anything. It could be a SIM, as he said, that the recharge is only 10 rupees, or a sachet for that pan masala. But then the numbers are so huge, for a business person the opportunity is huge. And I had one argument. I said, Professor, you are talking about opportunity at the bottom of the pyramid. You are telling companies how to make money out of these people. But how about putting money in their pocket? Unless they have the money, how the companies can make money out of them? He said, RK, that's not my job. I'm a business professor. I'm a consultant. If the government asks me to tell, maybe I'll tell. But my audience is how to tell companies to make money out of these people because they want to expand their market. And I think he was right because, if a farmer has a mobile phone and mobile phone company makes money out of him, it's good for the company, but also it's good for the farmer. So he potentially can talk to his son, who is not there, or he can get information, or potentially one day he'll be able to do banking transaction. So when I retired, I had absolutely no idea what I will do. What only idea I had that I would like to be in public policy. I'm not an NGO. I want to be very, very clear. And I'll tell you why I want to say that. Because I believe that NGOs are too many and doing various things. But the impact each NGO or all of them putting together many times does not get the desired result. And also the government statistics now they are trying to regulate the NGO. Many times there is misuse. And also you are trying to replicate or you are letting government off the hook. Because if you go and tell that government that fine, you are not able to do a good job, let me do it for you. Just give me the money and I'll do it for you. The government says, thank you very much. You do it, in fact do more. The government has a responsibility. There are certain sectors where the government must, which we call social sectors. It could be rural, anything to do with the rural, because those are the people who cannot take care of themselves. We fortunately can now, so we can create Gachibolis or white fields of the world, and we can do whatever we want. But then, and we don't want government to interfere with that. But there's a lot of things which government needs to do. And by the way, luckily for us, I think the first time in the history of modern India that we have no problem of money. Metaphorically, we have problem of money, but amount of money which is spent on the rural India is mind-boggling. Any guess? Around 2.5 lakh crores every year. Now, if that money is reaching people, not reaching people, it's not the problem of corruption actually. The corruption is simply because the processes, of course, I don't agree with him. It's not mythology which will fix it. You have to fix it by means which are at our disposal. And there has to be model, sustainable model. Today government has come up with an REGS scheme. And some of my friends who are very popular, they say, it's good to just throw the money through helicopter on a village will be much more meaningful than going through an REGS because he thinks that there's so much of corruption, which is true. Corruption is there. But then at least some people are not dying. Otherwise the same people would have died because there's no opportunity there. Now what I thought, so I was wondering whether I should go into politics, whether I should be, actually I wanted to be a public policy person. Now public policy in this country you can do only two ways. Either you are a professor and Sonia Gandhi puts you into that National Advisory Committee, NAC, or you are a bureaucrat. Politicians don't do public policy. They simply, in fact, Karnataka politicians, you know what they are doing nowadays, so I don't want to say. And so neither I am a bureaucrat because at 40 you don't enter IAS. And of course, I don't think I am a professor type. So for me it was essentially how do I engage, and while I was working I was still very much involved into the infrastructure of Bangalore because nowadays we're just during the lunch, any talk about Bangalore talks about bad roads and traffic jams and everything else. So I was involved into the working of the government. Then I said I should essentially try to create models because as a businessman we look at the best practices, create a model. Most of the NGOs do a good job of that. They create good models. Because the person who started NGO, he is directly involved, he monitors it, The problem happens when he is successful at a small level. He says, okay, I'm going to take over now the whole district and the state and potentially the country. So, I mean, I don't want to name, but the some NGOs which become very big, they get into problems of all the problems which you see in public sector. You know, you hire people who are not necessarily driven by the passion to do well, and worst part is that accountability is not there because you are an NGO. Whereas in public office, doesn't matter how crook a politician you are, after 5 years you have to face the public. So I believe that NGOs are good to create models, but they are not good to create solutions. Their solution will be only at the model stage. So all these studies I did for a couple of years. Then I realized if I want to create a model and I want to make it public policy, who will listen to me? Lead India happens once in a while and then we'll forget about it. So I said, well, we have to enter politics. Then of course politics is such, you are not invited to join politics, by the way. And especially if you are in suit and if you are educated, you potentially will ask questions. So just now somebody called me, Arki, what's happening? So what's the going rate now? Well, I said, I don't know which party you are talking about. I said, your party. So I said, I don't know. I have not been in touch. So that's the kind of politics we are doing nowadays, and I'm sure every state is having issues like that. So I joined a party, essentially the party which is in power in Karnataka, and I work with the central leadership. And my request to them has been, and I work across the parties, I work with Planning Commission, and I'm trying to create models. So I stay in Bangalore, so I'm creating urban model in Bangalore, and rural model I'm creating in UP. UP happens to be my home state, and I started from my village. And if many of you may be aware, but not, then I'll let you know, that smallest development unit in India is Panchayat. So all the schemes of the government and every intervention which happens, the smallest development unit is Panchayat, which is headed by an elected body, which is called Gram Sabha, and the head of that is Pradhan, Sarpanch, some states called Sarpanch. And by the way, there are only two people in this country who have the ability to sign the check. One is the Pradhan and one is the Prime Minister. Even the Chief Minister cannot sign the check. So 74th Amendment of the Constitution has given so much power and devolution of power to Panchayats. So if you get a unit like Panchayat, which are 6 lakhs units are there in this country, and if you can show that one unit functions well, potentially this can be replicated. Of course, depends on the will of the government and ability. So I took up my village, which is 9 villages. It's one panchayat. The village name is Sonari. It's 50 kilometers from Lucknow. It was simple because I grew up there, so I knew people. And when I landed in that village after 25-30 years, initially they thought, oh, he has come for there'll be movie shoot, TV shoot, and some news stories will come, and maybe some money will come, and then I'll be. But I stayed back. I keep going there every 15 days. I'll tell you what I'm doing there. And in the city, I took up the challenge, which is, I think, urban cities don't have the problem of money. They have problem of management. Whether it is management of land, the management of traffic, management of infrastructure. And I think one thing which we haven't done right in this country is infrastructure when it comes to cities and the connecting the cities. So I head the government's infrastructure committee, especially the transport part for the government of Karnataka in Bangalore. And the village, I am doing 5 interventions. One is the intervention for the income generation. Other is the employment. The third is education. Fourth is health. Then fifth is the harmony in the community. I don't know if many of you still have connections in the village. On average, every family would have gone into a dispute of some kind or running a court case. 1 in 5 families have that issue. And a lot of their money and time goes into fighting court cases. So I said that's another social problem, we should look into it, and I'll try to explain what I'm trying to do. Now my reason of when I was invited, by the way, Sanket, who heads CA here, was my neighbor and is a good friend of mine. And when he said that we are doing TEDx, would you come? I said, of course I'll come, because this is something where if I can convert one person from this audience who potentially wants to go and do his village, I think my purpose is solved. So I would like to hear from you after I talk that how many of you are going to go and do something for your villages. Or for Hyderabad. Yeah, urban is very easy to do. If your chief minister is your friend, then it's much easier. So in my village, when I went in 2008, and also another thing is that any story, good story you do, if it is told well, it becomes popular and many people follow it. And as you know that Lead India and otherwise, I am a person who essentially has been into media for quite some time, and I realize the power of media. If you do something good, you better tell a lot of people about it, so that many more people at least get to know about it and potentially get influence and do something. So whatever I'm doing in my village is being documented. BBC is making a documentary on it. They have come once, they are coming again next year. And United Nations potentially will talk about it in 2013 at the General Assembly. So by then, hopefully my interventions would have brought some result. So this is the discussion we are having. Because only if it becomes famous, I think people will try to give attention. And if I go to Planning Commission and say that I am so and so, it's different. But if I say, you know what, BBC is making a documentary and United Nations potentially will, then I think even the government will take it seriously. So I'm doing all that. So whatever you do, you try to tell others. Maybe you'll get some advice, if nothing else. And if you succeed, you'll also become popular and famous. And one day you can fight elections and hopefully win. Don't say why you want to fight elections, that's different. So when I started in 2008, I went to my village. And I went to my village after 25 years, or maybe more. Because most of the time I was abroad, I had desire to retire at 40, and when you want to retire at 40, you have to work really hard, because you have to make whatever money you need in very short time. So I was working very hard. I had no time for anything else. But when I retired, I had plenty of time. So I said, let me go and just... So first I got the meeting of all the villagers, and I understood what their problems are. Because many times you go there and try to tell them what you think is right for them. But many times they don't understand what you're telling, and neither you understand their problems. So I started with a school. I said, okay, and this meeting happened in the school. And I got the school district officers and all that. And I realized that nobody was interested in talking about school. Everybody was worried about, I don't have this to eat, I don't have this. So eventually we realized, no, it's not the education. Education cannot come in a hungry stomach. So we talked about, okay, what do we need first? He said, no, we need income. I said, the village is very poor. People have barely enough food to eat. And then we asked, okay, what do you do? Other than agriculture, they do nothing. They have no skills, they have no handicraft, you cannot teach them any skills. So then I said, what least you can do? We can graze the cattle. Then the idea of dairy came in. Of course, I had no clue about dairy. Then I went to Gujarat, understood the Amul model. I spoke to a lot of people. And everything you do, try to make it a policy, because otherwise it remains in your village. You may become famous, but nothing will come out of it. So I also started working with Mayawati government, UP government. And I spoke to the dairy department. First they said that I am some rich guy who has retired and made some money and he wants to do something and get some brownie points. But then I persisted for 1 year. So while I was working, whatever I was trying to do in the village, I was working with the government and working on a policy that if it succeeds here, it should potentially be scalable. There was talk of scale. How do we scale it? And of course I would say I was very lucky, because a lot of people gave a lot of support. And many of them had seen me on TV and newspapers, so that also was, I think, one factor. But I got a lot of support. So this negative feeling that government will do nothing, I think many times I asked them, I said, no, I hear all very horror stories of interaction with the government. He said, we all want to do something good. But many times the people I meet or you meet are not really interested in genuine things. But if you are trying to do genuine things, we are happy to help you. So then we said, we'll create a dairy. But please understand, none of it is social entrepreneurship from a viewpoint that whatever money I'm going to put there is going to come back to me same amount or more. Because this money is essentially a seed capital, and which in this case I put. But then the seed capital is available in various forms, either through the government or through private enterprise. But every model which is being done is sustainable. So once you have made it running, it's not going to be needing money on an ongoing basis. So here, you can see this is how it is. We started with the community dairy because many people don't even have a space to keep the cattle in their house. So whosoever can keep the cattle, they can keep the cattle, otherwise they can keep here. So I'll just show through some pictures. So how it came about. This is where the construction began. This is the shaft cutter. This is the chiller. The data center in the village where there is no power, there is no internet connectivity. So the kind of challenges which you come across are really, really unique, but you got to do it. Of course, there is no power. You can see the lines, but this power hardly comes. So you have the solar lights. This is the solar one. This is the first batch of cattle. Now when this happened, this picture came in Times of India. It was across the country. Then I get a call from Chief Minister's office. Where did it happen this? So we said in UP. Because it was in Lucknow Times of India edition, it was on the front page. And she said, this must be done. And since I was already working with the bureaucrats, they said, Madam, there is a scheme. We are already working with Mr. Misra, there is a scheme. She said, give the name Ambedkar. I don't care, because I was not interested in having R.K. Misra scheme. So I said, fine. So now there is a government scheme based on this model, and there is a training institute here. Any farmer who wants to do, they can come here and get trained, and the rooms and also there, people sit there in their training center. So there is a 300 crore scheme implemented in 40 districts of UP. And this was, and if I had not come in Times of India, and after Times of India came, a lot of people came and interviewed and all that. So this is very important. Whatever you do, it's very important to talk about it. So that was something which I realized, and I kind of planned for it, but then I wasn't sure that Chief Minister. So all the image we have of Mayawati, I mean, I don't know if any of you have been to Lucknow, you see the whole city is, statues, this, that and all that, but then she's also a person who wants to win election. So if somebody goes and gives her an idea that potentially this could be also, scheme which can give you votes, the politician, you have to understand how to motivate the politician. I mean, like you motivate your boss. I mean, you don't get promotion just by doing hard work, do you? I mean, in my company, a lot of people have to be hardworking and be my friends also to get promotion. So this is how actually it's life. This is how it is. I mean, in work you do it. So this is what I do with politicians. So I use bureaucrats to get to the nuts and bolts. But bureaucrats can only give you the scheme. But who will implement it is a politician. So that's why I'm in politics. To make sure that this equation goes right. And then I use media to scare them that if you don't do it, potentially there might be some negative fallout. Judiciary I haven't tried yet. So now this place has, so this dairy is a model dairy in UP. Initially I used to send my farmers, by the way, the amount of money required is not very huge. I used to send my people from my village to Haryana. NDRI is there in Karnal. The ticket is some 200 rupees. They don't want AC coaches and all that. And there, the central government funds it. The total expense on one farmer used to be around 1,000 rupees. And then thing was that when you go there, you come back and teach 5 more farmers. And now they don't have to go there, they come to my dairy. And it has all the facilities in terms of artificial insemination, the medical facilities. Now we have a deal with Allahabad Bank, which is the lead bank for the district, that loan if they want to take. Unfortunately, I don't believe into microfinance because the people who cannot afford 5% interest rate or 10%, they can't give 40% interest rate. Unless you have income which is a daily income, these people cannot afford it. So there is a financing also available. Then next I said, okay, now the income is there. This is for the people who potentially are already beyond an age where they cannot be trained. These are people who are 30 years and above. They are already farmers. There is not enough land for them to sustain themselves through the agriculture means. Then I said, okay, next should be the school. This is how the school looks. If anybody can read Hindi, you will know this village name. This is how the school was. So I cannot see any children, but there are a lot of cows. I went to the classroom, and this is how it is. So I don't know, from any standard, even from Indian standard, situation is really, really, really bad. So first I sponsored, number of teachers were less. The government has a sanction number. They cannot hire more even if they have money. So I appointed 2 teachers, and they were very happy. They were trained, but they didn't have a government job, so they were happy to do it. But they said, sir, please make sure in few years I become permanent. Well, I said, I will try. But anyway, they are there. Then I also asked one guy to give a database of all the children, who they are, what is the socio-economic background, we kind of know, what are their potential and things like that. Then I went to HCL, because in the whole district, I am the first and the last person who went to IIT. The situation is that not only that village or that taluk, the whole district is so backward, and it is just 50 kilometers from Lucknow, which is the state capital. So anybody who is even talented potentially has nowhere to go after doing his, junior. So HCL has another foundation, and they were starting these residential schools, and they were scouting, and they are based in Noida. So they want to do in UP. They are scouting for. That is my being in IT industry helped. Because I knew him from other days. I said, you are trying to do something, and his daughter is involved in that. I said, why don't you do it in my place? He said, RK, you have to find me. You know how I said, bureaucracy, I'll take care of it. If you know, my surname is Misra, and there is some other very important Misra in UP. So, well, this is the Indian way of doing things, correct? So I got him a place, and now he is putting fully funded residential school, which will essentially prepare children who are good to compete with anybody else. So once I get this primary school done, the junior high and the high school is taken care of by this. Because unless you can create scientists, but then they have to get a job. So if you get at primary level situation taken care, I didn't want to become an education guy. Ideally an NGO will do that. India will say, okay, fine, I'm going to take over the school, and I'll make it the best school. Only problem will be that there will be only one school which will be the best. Now, here what I'm trying to do is to convert a government school. There are 3 schools there in the whole Panchayat, 9 villages, 6,000 people. Convert a government school to a standard which is acceptable. Then the better of those should go to a school which is best. And then try to make sure the other schools in the district also become at least to an acceptable level, because scalability will not come. By the way, all of you pay 2% education cess. You know that? In your income tax every year. Government is not able to spend that money. Education cess is the one money which is still not spent fully, because 1,000 issues are there. There are bureaucracy, there are teachers union, there's so many issues. So this is how I started. Then, to get a model going, this village, I go only 15 days, and I could not find anybody who doesn't know ABCD also. So I spoke to a friend of mine who runs an international school called Indus. Many of you might have, they have one in Hyderabad also. It's an international school. Owned by a friend of mine, a builder, run by a very, very famous person who won a Kargil war, General Arjun Ray. He is the administrator. And him and I were talking, he's in Bangalore. He said, RK, we want to do something. And this is much before the right to education came. The right to education now, every school has to have underprivileged children. And now everybody is very unhappy about it. How can my child be with a child who has never been to a school and all that? But this guy thought about it. He has created a school which is to be seen, to be believed. It's totally e-school. Though I'm a little bit concerned about it. The children don't see book, what concept, but everything is on the net. You have these small laptops which Intel has created and donated. You should see this. So this is one model which is already working in Bangalore, and these children are from the villages. See, every child has a laptop. There was some scheme, I think one laptop per child or something. I'm still not very convinced about the laptop part, but I was very convinced about the model. This is what is happening in Bangalore. The good thing is that they have an international school. It is in the same campus as the international school. It is not somewhere outside. And most of the funding has been brought by the children themselves. So this was a social project for the privileged kids who work there. They raised 75 lakhs for this school. And this model cannot be exactly taken, because where will you get 75 lakhs in every village? But this gives a very good idea. So what these children are going to do is they are going to do a distant education through the net into the village through a smart board. Because I cannot take these people from Bangalore to my village. But these people are available to help us. Even training our teachers in that school, they will do. Indus also runs a training academy. These are scalable models because you cannot have a trainer in every school, but you can have intern in every school. So this is where we are talking about technology. Of course, in dairy part, technology was very simple. It was a chiller and maybe artificial insemination, but here is technology, and that village has no power, by the way. Power comes 6 hours a day, some 1 week in the night, 1 week in the day. So those are challenges which I am still struggling how to figure out. Luckily, my buffaloes are coming to rescue because the generator, the biogas plant will be done through the cow dung. Coming to next. What happens to this is for the children who are up to 12 to 15 years old. Then I have taken care of the people who are above 30 years who already become farmers. What happens to the people who have neither become farmers, now are going to school, what happens to them? And they are semi-educated. Can somebody help me here with that BPO thing? So when we were doing this analysis, and that's where my education and my management thing came, I kind of subdivided those groups. So one was essentially age group up to 12 years or 15 years, then 15 to 25, then 25, 30 and above. So for 15 to 25, the people who essentially have dropped out of the school, they feel they are educated, so they don't want to go and work in the fields, but they cannot get a job, so they are nuisance. Because they are troubling their parents, give me the money, and what do they with the money? They go have drink and play cards, that's what they do in the village, and do everything else, what young people do. So for this, essentially, again, I am from IT industry. I have been helping my friends in something called rural BPO. It's a BPO which is done in rural India. So he had been doing it at Taluk headquarters. He has not gone to a real village. And the gentleman from Andhra, he was heading a BPO for a US company in India. He retired. He is a big devotee of Sai Baba, and he said, I want to dedicate my life to improving others. And he started this company called Rural Shores. If you go to the website, ruralshores.com, you'll know. First school was near International Airport in Bangalore, and then we have been kind of helping him. Now he has around 7 rural BPOs doing work as complicated as any other BPO, by the way. But it is done in rural India, hiring people from the nearby villages and delivering to everywhere in the world. Now the challenge and the model is a little different because IBMs and Accentures and CAs has potentially an army of salespeople who are paid $100,000 and above. Correct? So they can go and convince anybody in the world and get whatever work they can. Oh, India is fine, India is beautiful, India is Bharatanatyam, India is cheap also. So get the work. Problem with this guy is his average salary is around 8,000. His cost of operation is around 15,000 or 12,000, and he gets 15,000. He cannot afford, even if he gets one $100,000 guy who goes and markets and he turns out to be not a very good salesman, I think his whole company will go down. So I'm his salesman. You are his salesperson. So what I do, I go and talk to IBM. So IBM has an India operation, BPO. So they source business, maybe you know Dutch, correct? So Dutch has, and the founder of Dutch was my friend, and now there is a person who heads India's India operation of IBM's BPO, where they source business from India. Bharti did, all of the Bharti stuff, they do it. So I asked him, I said, boss, why are you looking at this business? He said, RK, I cannot manage people who get only 15,000 rupees salary or 8,000 salary. I said, what do you mean? He said, it's a very different mindset. My manager will not work with them. So I said, how do I get business for them? He said, if they understand what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to do, I'll give them business. IBM was first. Now we are talking to you know who. So there are people like us who have been in the industry, who have the abilities. We don't have to leave our jobs like me. We don't have to go to the villages and start a dairy or in our own little way. We try to seek out and try to help. There are enough people trying to do it, but they have to scale up. So this gentleman is going to put his BPO on the top of the dairy's administrative block. And of course we'll put the diesel generator, but we are also using the gobar gas from the cow dung to power this. A 10 kilowatt biogas engine has been put, which will give around 6 hours per day. Remaining will be through diesel and whenever the power supply comes. So this is something I want to just show you, that this is not something which is just being talked about. There are already 7 centers running, so we've got pictures of these centers. This looks like any other BPO. Many places where the building, this is not his building, he can't afford this fancy building. It's an engineering college where he had, because these people are not getting jobs. So he said, okay, give me some place, I'll give the job. A good model here. Because see, nowadays engineers also don't get jobs. So this is my friend, I'm sure you remember, you see him, no, this person? So one day he tells me, I met him, I said, what are you doing for your constituency? Where do I have time for my constituency? I said, how will you win next time? He said, please tell me something. Of course he knows how to win, that I don't have to tell him. So I told him, why don't you, because I wanted Karnataka government to make a scheme, and I'll tell you how they botched up the scheme. So I told him, actually it so happened there was something happening in Hampi and me and him were on the same helicopter. So just 5-minute talk, because to Jindal airstrip from the venue 5 minutes, and from there it was a plane. So 5 minutes I was with him. I said, you should start a BPO. And he said, what is that? I said, you'll give job to your people. He said, people in the village will get job in computer. I said, yes. The only thing he did is just to inaugurate. He doesn't know what happened before that or after that, but that was enough for me. And this picture was good enough for me to go and talk to the IT department in government of Karnataka. Within 2 days there was a scheme that every district will have a rural BPO. But then the bureaucracy come in. So they created 30 BPOs and they created a scheme. You should be first time. You should have never done it. You should be unemployed, because then only government can use subsidy. Imagine a person who has never had a job. First time, doesn't know BPO, how will he run it? But that's the government scheme. So the only 2 BPOs which this company got, and 30 lakh was the subsidy. All the money of infrastructure creation is free. Fine, you create the building, but where is the business? So most of the BPOs are closed. So this guy was telling me, RK, what are they doing? I said, let them close first, then you will get all of them. Correct? Ultimately, you go and tell them they will be doing a favor to you. But when they close, you know they cannot do it, then the guys who got it, they become your correspondents. You know, you make them the entrepreneurs and you give them know-how and business. So working with the government is also an art, which most of us techies don't understand, but now that I'm not techie anymore, I'm slowly understanding. I just wanted to show you this picture for sure. Not to get any brownie points, but how to manage the system. And these girls, I'll tell you, they are much more motivated. I don't want to say that CA people are not motivated. You guys are very motivated. But they fight among themselves, not physical fight, on the competition. No, they're the kind of incentives we give, that your mother will be brought and you'll be honored in front of your mother. No salary hikes, by the way. We're not talking about that. That itself is a motivation for them to be the best for that month, because they are so starved of opportunities. So if each of us, I'm not talking about each individual, a department head, a company, starts thinking about something which you can do. It's not very difficult. So my motivation of coming here and talking to you only was this. If I can at least put a spark in your mind that something needs to be done, which is beyond our first car and second house and third Mercedes and fifth foreign trip, I think this country needs that. And I don't think it's your money. It's your mind share. Money will come. Initial, I have put whatever money, couple of crores. But beyond that, now people are ready because they've seen the things happening. And there's plenty of money available in the system, public and private. And if you know how to get money from public, you let me know. Public, I'm some government. I know how to get the money, but if there is a genuine cause, money is there. So if you can, please think about it, what you can do. Just think about it. If you grew up in a village, you know what the problems are. I don't have to tell you. And if you have not been to your village for after 20 years, please go. Just go and see what's happening. And also I'll tell you, when Chidambaram said, I think there was a mention by Anil Gupta, that 1/3 of India is ungovernable. And people in Andhra should know it very well. It's next door to you. Naxals are nobody. They are simply the people who haven't got it. And they are very upset with the people who have got it. They are same people. My in-laws are in Jamshedpur, which is Tata Nagar. That's a great city and great community, and because Tatas are there. But you cannot get out of Jamshedpur. When I go there, I have to take a train which reaches Jamshedpur from Calcutta because there's no flight, daytime. And I could not go to my in-laws in Diwali because I could not get the train, because trains get booked 3 months in advance. I could not get a day train, so I had to cancel my trip. I was going only in December. Why should a Naxal problem hit me? But it did just now. And my wife is very upset. He said, you didn't book in advance. I thought train booking opens only 2 months in advance. Actually, it opens 3 months in advance. I got to know that because I never booked trains. So if you feel the problem of whatever kind, Naxal or otherwise, is too far, it's not too far. And the next time a train derails, the next time shootout happens, it might be us. So I think it's very important. And forget about fear. Don't do it for fear. Do it for goodness of things. So please do something. And if you have some thought about it, my email ID is very easy to get. I'm trying to change India. So RK is my name. So RK@changeindia.in. Just write to me.